was intended to offer Walt Disney, from the established criteria, different aspects of traditional Chilean culture. Of course, the traditional Chilean music showed to him was cueca, considered by law a national dance. Disney and his team had opportunity to hear and dance cueca during a visit to a property near to La Laguna de Aculeo. However, the first official person to talk about Chilean music for Disney's project was the composer Domingo Santa Cruz, then Dean of the Facultad de Artes of the Universidad de Chile and a key figure in the musical institutionality of the country. The meeting was held at Hotel Carrera, an elegant place next to the government house used for diplomatic and official activities. The participants of this meeting were Santa Cruz, we are going to see Santa Cruz there, his collaborator and future wife Filomena Salas, and Disney's manager John C. Rose. We have only a few documents that register this encounter, but this gives us only little details about the conversation itself. Consequently, what I will try to do in this paper is to use this scene to imagine the conversation between Santa Cruz, Salas, and Disney's manager, based on two questions. What concept of Chilean music could have been offered to the Disney project? And what aspects of a supposed Chilean music style could have been interesting for Disney and the American culture industry? Well, at the time of Disney's visit, Domingo Santa Cruz's overall project for Chilean music was mostly consolidated. This project signaled an abrupt change, which we can briefly describe in the following points. A new paradigm in the training of musicians, from a conservatory model to a university training attempt. The founding of numerous institutions, such as the Facultad de Bellas Artes in 1929, Orquesta Sinfónica de Chile, 1941, Instituto de Extensión Musical, the same year, among others. Third, the refundational discourse, the consolidation of this discourse and the invisibilization of the previous musical activity. And finally, and perhaps the most importantly for the topic of this conference, an abrupt change in the project of identity for music composed in Chile, based on an idealized vision of German Romanticism, with Richard Wagner as a main reference and inspiration. Obviously, the folklore and popular manifestations were not considered worthy. Regarding this last point, an illustrative example of this ideal is a short essay that Alfonso Lenk, entitled On Chilean Musical Art, published in 1927 in Marcias, arguably the first important journal of the Santa Cruz project. Basically, this paper exposed Lenk's concept of a national music for Chile, based in the exclusion of the popular folklore and the exaltation of German music. I will show you just 2 paragraphs of this paper. This is the first one. I'm going to translate here. In Germany, the music of Bach, Beethoven, and Wagner, to name only the foremost examples, represents the nobility and depth of the German soul, its love for nature, the deep romanticism that characterizes it. It is rare to find elements of popular folklore in these authors, and yet their music is the most accurate representation of the German soul. Later, Lenk says, the folklore of the Germanic and Saxon people, this is worst, is of better quality, due to the degree of this infiltration by a religious spirit, since the liturgical chorale has left in the depth of the souls the memory, the lost notes of an uplifting song. Okay, if we suppose that this was the idea of Chilean music presented to Disney, it's obvious that the offer not was too attractive according to the codes of American mass media. Since this was the ideal that shaped music composition in the period, this was a problem. On the other hand, if we consider that they might have offered instead popular Chilean music to them, we would find that the result would have been very similar. Unlike the cases of Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, Peru, Bolivia, or Cuba, I have found just 2 examples of Chilean popular music appreciated by the American culture industry. And the version, as will we hear, suffered a lot of change in rhythm, instrumentation, style, etc. The first example is Chiu Chiu. Yeah, okay, it's a song written by the composer Nicanor Molinare, Rencoret, and is based on the corrido genre, originally from Mexico. This song was recorded by RCA Victor by Carlos Leffler in voice, and was the first and most important success of Molinare. Okay, let's to hear just a few seconds.
Canta, canta, pajarito, canta, canta tu canción. Dice que la vida es triste y tu cantar me alegra el corazón.
That's the first version of 37. Okay, and 5 years later, but this song was included in a production of an American mainstream film, You Were Never Lovelier, yeah, starring Rita Hayworth and Fred Astaire. In this movie, Chiu Chiu was played by a tropical orchestra directed by Xavier Cugat, with Lina Romay and Miguelito Valdez as vocal soloists. First, I just edited 1 minute, but now I prefer to expose the 2 minutes because I think that is a very illustrative example of this mechanic of exotization of Chilean music. That's what we are for Hollywood. Miguel Farias playing.
Mira que la vida es triste y tu cantar me alegra el corazón.
Okay, Hollywood choirs.
Canta, canta, pajarito, que tu cantar me alegra el corazón.
And look the sexual attitude of the man.
Despierta el alba, la noche ya se va.
And the girl looks out.
Con tu crina, despierta el alba, la noche ya se va.
And more, and never stop. Always can be worse. Epic final. Okay, maybe it's important to say that Xavier Cugat is a Catalan violin player. He studied in Cuba when he was a kid. And after he went to New York, and he was like André Rieu of Latin music in 40s. And so he built the Latin music for mainstream, American mainstream. He's a very key figure. Okay, and returning to the art no, sorry, I have another example. Um, the second example is outside of my temporal frame, but I will show you because it reaffirms my hypothesis. No? I'm referring to Casamiento de Negros, originally written and recorded by Violeta Parra in 1955, and the song was versioned at the following year with the title Melodía Loca, no? The Chilean Crazy Song, by Lex Baxter. Lex Baxter is an icon of orchestrated music of 50s, like a dentist's music of 50s. Okay, this is the original, just a short fragment.
Se ha formado un casamiento,
Just guitar and
todo
voice.
cubierto de negro, negros novios y pairinos, negros cuñados y suegros, y el cura que los casó era de los mismos negros.
And now the version in Les Baxter Orchestra, we are going to hear just a few seconds. While you're hearing, you can read the liner notes. It's a bit psycho, but. Etc. Repeats constantly, and this is real. Huh? I copied from the disc. It's not my invention. Okay, returning to the art music field, after reviewing research projects like that of Carol Hess, we can affirm that in the context of the Pan-Americanist project of the 30s and 40s, the North American expectation for Latin American music always concerned features like nationalism, spirit, rhythmic complexity, and emotionalism. On the other hand, the appreciation of these musics were built around their supposed potential for transgression, their irresistible color, or essentialist categories that would have worked with American audiences, like unmistakable Mexican, genuinely Peruvian, unique, distinctive, or characteristic, constituting a reflection of what historian Ricardo Salvatore calls adjectivization. In this aesthetic and political designation about what was considered Latin American art music for North American audiences, unlike countries like Mexico, Brazil, or Argentina, mainly represented in figures like Chavez, Villalobos, or Ginastera, Chilean art music was not among the favorites, which is symptomatic, considering the positive appreciation of Chile by North American foreign policy. At this point, I would like to think about a few other questions open to discussion. What would have happened if the meeting with Disney manager had occurred with another composer, with another conception of project of identity for Chilean art music? Here I think of names of like Carlos Isamit, Pedro Humberto Allende, or Carlos Lavín. I can add Pablo Garrido. We talked about him yesterday. And their relationship of these authors with sounds expression of traditional cultures, mainly from Mapuche culture. So imagining the meeting in question, replacing Santa Cruz name with Isamit, Allende, or Lavín, would this meeting have constituted a change in the perception of Chilean art music abroad? What forms of exoticism and auto-exoticism could have been learned from this experience and affected Chilean composers?